CEO of C-Suite Women's Network, and I help women to be the CEOs of their lives so that they can be better CEOs of their businesses. Now, I work with women who want to take it to the next level of their business. They want to get greater business results. They want to transition from corporate America into having their own business. But one thing about being in business is this. Business does not always go as planned. Well, guess what? Neither does your life. Which is why today I want to talk to you. I want to have a very candid conversation about going from breakup to breakthrough. And I'm going to give you 5 critical steps that it takes to get back to the business of you. Because, when we go through a breakup, it is a very impactful event in our life. And it can keep us from taking care of business. And as business women, whether we work for ourselves or whether we are working in a business, we need to get back to business. And, it is something that's really very important and something that I want to help you to get back to business. So, you may ask, what gives you the credentials to do this? Well, you know what? I had to go through a breakup to get back to business myself. And so this is a moment of transparency, and it is also a moment of sharing my journey with you. Because I had the fortune of being a coach. So I know how to coach myself, so to speak. And so the very steps that I used, I want to share with you. So you may be asking, why do I want to listen to this? Why is this important to me? Well, the very obvious reason could be that you've recently gone through a breakup. You may have ended a relationship. You may have recently gone through a divorce. You may be going through a divorce. You may have even suffered the loss of your loved one through death. You may have broken up from a long-term friend, because breakups come in several different ways. Sometimes it is literally the breakup of a relationship. And sometimes it is something that we've chosen for ourselves. And sometimes it's something that has been chosen for us. So even if you were the one who decided to end the relationship, or it was something that happened beyond your control, it was decided for you, either through divorce that was initiated by someone else, or even death. It is very important to use the same strengths that you have in business to get through your personal life. And so we're just going to have a conversation. I'm just watching my time because, I could talk about this forever, but y'all don't want to be on here forever. But we're going to have a very candid conversation. So, the other person for whom this might be helpful is the person who has broken up, but the relationship is still intact. Now you're like, okay, that's not a breakup. Yes, it is. And here's why. Because sometimes, when we're in relationships, we may be experiencing a period where the relationship is not all that we desire. And we are still together, but we're not. And many times in relationships, the relationship is still intact. You may still be married. You may still be living together. You may still otherwise be in a relationship, but you was broke up as the day is long. And it's because you've had that mental separation that either precedes the actual breakup or could lead to the end of the relationship. And so in getting over a breakup, or getting through a breakup, or patching up a breakup, at the very heart of that process is getting back to you. So that's why I want to talk to you. Now, there are several steps or several things that you have to go through to actually get to the breakup, get from breakup to breakthrough. And, I went through a literal 30-day process. Okay, 30 steps. But I'm not going to do all 30 steps today because, one, we don't have that amount of time, and two, it is not that easy. But what I do want to talk about are the 5 critical steps that it takes to begin your process. And the first thing is this, we have to recognize that loss is a beautiful thing. And you're like, okay, no, losing something is never beautiful. Yes, it can be. And it can be when you decide to look for the beauty in the moment. And, I always like to use the literal symbolism of being in a storm. And let's see, what, 15 years ago, or no, 13 years ago, I was in Hurricane Katrina. I lived on the Mississippi Gulf Coast when Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast. And I literally remember being in the storm. And I remember, the process before. I remember that while the storm was just ravaging the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and I remember the time period afterwards. And here's the thing that I learned from that devastation. And while I will never celebrate a devastation, what I do want to celebrate is the renaissance, the rebirth, the renewal. And I remember during that process that, literally there, was coming out of the storm or coming, going back out to go back to my home after the storm had passed. And, well, actually, I remember being in the storm, there was just all the wind was moving around me. You could hear the rain. You could hear kind of everything that was going on. It was seemingly chaos outside. There was a moment of peace when the center passed over, when the center of the storm passed over, the eye of the storm passed over. Then the wind and the rain came back, and then the storm was gone. And I remember emerging from the safe space. I had happened to have been in the hospital. I was a hospital executive, so I had to report to the hospital. And so I was actually there during the storm. I remember going back to my house and looking at all the devastation. I remember getting back to my house and how it was just ravaged by storm waters. I was fortunate in that I was not slabbed, meaning my house was still there, but the water had come in and washed out, and it was just a real ugly scene. I remember going to the end of my street. I lived on a peninsula. I remember going to the end of the street, and those houses had literally been wiped away. So it was like a bomb had dropped on the end of my street. And I just remember the days afterwards and the weeks afterwards when you went from the immediate devastation until the point where those houses, some of them were rebuilt, some of the debris was moved away, and when the entire Gulf Coast went through this period of rebirth. And in getting through that process, one of the things that I had to do was to focus not on the devastation of the storm, but on the celebration of the rebirth, the renewal, the renaissance. And that's why I say that loss is beautiful, can be beautiful. And it's all about perspective, but it's also about making the choice to move from devastation to celebration. And while you're not celebrating, again, the loss, what you do have to celebrate is the opportunity for rebirth, renewal, and renaissance. And so, the beginning of this journey is taking that moment to be still. And I love the imagery of the words, peace, be still. And when you're in a storm, when you're in the devastation of the breakup, when you're in the devastation of the decision to break up, when you're in the immediate aftermath of the destruction, while it may be counterintuitive, what is the best thing to do is to say, peace, be still. Because there's power in stillness. And it's not a moment of nothing happening. It's not a moment of defeat or not a moment of giving up, but it is a moment of regaining momentum. And if you really think about like a literal storm, remember I described, being in that process where the storm was passing over, then the eye passed over, and then the rest of the storm passed through. When that eye passes over, that's energy being recirculated, regenerated, renewed. And so if you're going to go forward, you need energy. Because this breakthrough process is not something that is passive. It's not something that is done in it requires energy because you're literally rebuilding your life. You're rebuilding your reality. You're rebuilding who you are. That's why I say getting back to the business of you. So it's really very important to have that moment of stillness where you can gather your energy, gather your momentum, and gather the reserve that it takes to rebuild, renew, rebirth, and have your renaissance. So this is the thing that I want you to remember as we begin this process. I want to empower you with stillness so that you can go forward. Okay? So as I mentioned, there are 5 steps, 5 critical steps of getting back to the business of you after a breakup. And before we go, because I know that there are those of you who are out there watching, here's what I want you to put in the comments. I am still, and it's STILL, I am still, hashtag, I am still here, hashtag, I am still moving forward. Because many times you may feel stuck and you may think that, because your world has been turned upside down, that all of a sudden you are no longer here, but you are still here. That's why we're getting back to you. We're not recreating you. We're not creating you. We're getting back to you. Because in a relationship, and particularly one that has gone through any level of tumult, okay, whether it is something as simple as people growing apart, although people growing apart is simple yet very complex, or a domestic violence situation, or an otherwise toxic relationship. It doesn't matter which end of the spectrum. It is still devastating to be torn apart from the one you love. And so you have to recognize you are still here. So for those of you who are out there in the online, I want you to put that in the comment. Hashtag, I am still here. Which is why we're going to get back to you. So as I mentioned, there are 5 critical steps. 5 critical steps to get back to the business of you after a breakup. And we're going to go through those 5 today. And if you want the opportunity to have a conversation, I will give you that opportunity at the end, where we can talk more intimately about getting you from your breakup to your breakthrough. And remember, hashtag, you are still here. So there are 5 steps. The first step is focus. The second step is do forgiveness. The third step is dealing with your feelings. The 4th step are your fears. And then the 5th step is vulnerability. Okay? So I'm going to talk about each of those, and those are very critical. And while they don't have to happen in that order is very helpful. So let's get started with the first step. And the first step number 1, is focus on your future. So write that in the hashtag. The first step of getting from in the comments, the first step of getting from your breakup to your breakthrough is to focus on the future. Now, on the day that my ex-husband of 21 years said to me, I am not happy, I don't want to be married anymore, I had to go and deliver, I was scheduled to deliver a talk, I was scheduled to go coach women and to give a talk about resiliency and leaders. And I thought to myself, God, you are tripping. You are truly tripping. You've got to be tripping. That my whole world is falling apart and you want me to go talk to these women about being resilient. I ain't resilient nothing, right? That's how I felt. And I'm, on the one hand, I could have just called them up and canceled. But, I just didn't want to call up and cancel. One, I'm kind of crazy like that. I just didn't want to disappoint. Not that I didn't want to disappoint, but I felt that I needed to show up. I felt that I needed to show up, especially on that day when I had the best excuse in the world. Because I'm sure, had I called them up and said, my ex-husband or my husband just told me he wants a divorce. I'm sorry, I can't show up to talk to y'all about resiliency today. I'm sure they would have understood. But I needed to show up. And what that moment did, and I did indeed show up. Because fortunately, or unfortunately, however you want to describe it, we had the conversation probably about 8 o'clock or so that morning, and I was scheduled to be there at noon. So I had 4 hours to get myself together so that I could go and talk to these women about resiliency. And I'm so glad that I did. Not only just to get me in the right frame of mind and just to get me out of, oh my God, my whole world's about to implode, I'm just going to fall apart. But the very thing that I had to talk to them about that day was what I needed to hear. And I talked to them about their belief system. I talk to them about their people, having the right people in their lives. I talk to them about having the right systems and processes and structures and resources. I talk to them about being motivated and determined, and I talk to them about knowing their why. And in that moment, I needed to focus on my future rather than focusing on the devastation of what I was about to go through. And so, by showing up for them, I was able to show up for myself. And so, it's really very important to recognize that, and I don't say this lightly because I've been there myself. When you face a devastation, when you face a loss, it could be loss of a business, it could be loss of a loved one, it could be literally the breakup. When you break away from anything that has a piece of your heart, the immediate response is just to fall apart. You get stuck. You don't know where to go because everything is changing. Everything is shifting. What you knew was real is no longer real. What you thought was going to be forever is no longer. And so even though your first inclination is to fall apart, that is the very moment when you need to recognize that life will and life must go on. It may not need to go on that day. I'm not saying that you need to immediately just, okay, I'm going to get it all together. I'm going to get it. Everything's going to be fine like right now. No, what I'm saying is making the decision. Life will go on. Life is going to go on. And you know what? It may not be today, but there is going to be a day where I'm going to get to my future. That's why it is so important for you to focus on your future. So for those of you who are out there online, here's what I want you to declare. Hashtag, my life will go on. And it will. It won't be the same. It won't look like it looked before. But how it looks, here's the thing, how it looks is all up to you. It's your choice. And that's the beauty of, as I said, I started this out with telling you that loss is beautiful. Loss can be beautiful because after a loss, after a devastation, nature has shown us that there's always a renaissance. So even though you're in the devastation now, you have a choice to make that transition to the celebration of your renaissance. So, even though you don't have to deal with it today, and I'm not saying you get it all together right now at this very moment, just make the choice that you will be able to move on. That's why step one is focus on your future. So if you've not already put that in the comments, somebody put that in the comments for me. Hashtag focus on your future. Step one, focus on your future. And here's what I want you to take away. Here's the takeaway from this step. Put this in the comments. Focus on what you cannot see until you see it. Focus on what you cannot see until you see it. Because in the immediacy of the devastation, all you see is the devastation until you choose to see beyond the devastation, to see the celebration of the Renaissance. So even though you may not be able to see the Renaissance right now, focus on the Renaissance until you can see the Renaissance. Focus on the Renaissance until you become the Renaissance and until you are actually living the rebirth of you. All right? So now let's move on to step two. All right? Because remember, these are 5 critical steps of getting back to the business of you after a breakup. Okay? So step 1, focus on your future. Step 2 is free yourself from forgiveness. Free yourself from forgiveness. Now I'll share with you, the day after, so day 1 I had to go and deliver this talk, right? Day 2, I happened to go to the movies. I have no idea why I went to the movies this day, but I went to the movies to see Barbershop 3, I think. Barbershop 2 or 3, one of the barbershops. So anyway, it's the one with Common and Eve, and there's a scene where they're kind of going through a little turbulence in their marriage, and and I think Carmen comes back to their house or whatever, and Carmen and Eve are having this conversation on the porch of their house, and basically, you know, they're having their come to Jesus moment and reconciling and kind of going through this. So I'm like, okay, all right. Now I see it's all my fault, right? So at that moment, because one of the things that the Eve character talked about, I forgot what her character's called in there, but anyway, that's irrelevant. That's beside the point. But one of the things that she said was, or she recognized how, you know, she was not telling him or showing him how much she appreciated him. I think that was kind of the nexus of the conversation. So I'm like, aha, that's what was wrong with me, right? I didn't appreciate him. I didn't show him this. I went through all the reasons that it was all my fault, you know, because I'm analytical, okay? Can't give up being an attorney. So I analyzed everything and I figured out why it was all my fault. And I went back to the house because, you know, this was all very new and he lived upstairs. So I lived downstairs, he lived upstairs. He hadn't moved out of the house yet. And so I went upstairs and I go up there and I talk to him and I'm like, well, you know, I've been thinking about things. I just want you to know that I apologize. That I took you for granted and I asked for his forgiveness. Will you forgive me? And I just kind of went through this litany of all these things that I thought I had done wrong and I asked for his forgiveness. And then I felt, okay, life is better, okay? But here's the empowerment of that moment. Because one of the very crucial steps in getting from your breakup to your breakthrough is this. You have to understand your role. Because there are always two sides to it. You know, you're never in a relationship by yourself. It's always two people. And you are dishonest with yourself if you don't at least evaluate what you have contributed to the breakup. Now, you may ultimately find that you did all that you could do. You did your best. Because sometimes people just make a decision that they don't want to be with you. And that's a whole nother situation. You know, because your worth is not determined by someone else's choices. And so when they make the choice, you know what, I want to do something else. I want a younger version. I want an older version. I want a different version. I want to be by myself. Whatever the choice is, that does not define who you are. But it is very important in this process of getting back to the business of you to understand your role, because this is all about your renaissance, getting back to you. And you can't be reborn if you don't recognize what must die. I might want to put that in the comments. You cannot be reborn until you recognize what must die. And sometimes the relationship needs to die and be reborn in another form. Sometimes reconciliation truly comes from this act of forgiveness. But that's not the point, because one of the things that I want you to understand, that this is not about getting to your next relationship necessarily. This is not the focus. This is about getting back to you. Because if you want to get to the next relationship and you want it to be better than the one you had before, or if you need to recreate the relationship that you have and create something new, you've got to bring to it a new you. Because if you bring the old you and he brings the old him, well, you got the same thing and you're not going to go forward. So many times you must, in order to be reborn, you must recognize what must die. So part of this process, to free yourself from forgiveness, you have to understand your role, ask for forgiveness, and move on. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes the forgiveness is reciprocated, but many times it's not. And that's not the point. Because this is all about you and getting back to you. And you cannot fix what you will not face. I'll say that again. You cannot fix what you will not face. So this is all about facing what you need to forgive yourself for. Because sometimes you need to forgive yourself. You might need to forgive yourself for the things that you could have done better, should have done better, would have done. Because there are always things that you could have done better. Okay? But forgiveness is a very powerful thing because it releases you to get to the next step. Because, you know, I see way too many women, and I'm talking to mostly women right now, because I can only talk about this from the experience of being a woman. Men break up too. Men experience the same thing, but I've never been a man and trying to be a man. I'm talking about my experiences as a woman. And what, in making this decision to ask for forgiveness, what I decided for me was that I was not going to be the woman 5 years from now, mad as hell at him over something he didn't do, shouldn't have done, whatever, and I'm blocking my own joy. Because that's what we have to understand. Because there are far too many of us that are holding on to hurt from years ago. We're holding on to hurt from last week. We're holding on to hurt 10 years ago. And when you hold on to that hurt, that anger, that resentment, whatever it is, being pissed off, however you want to call it, when you hold on to that, you are holding yourself back. So forgiveness is not about them. And it could be, I'll just say this. When you forgive the other person for the things that they've done to you, you release their power over you. Because as long as you are angry at whatever it is they did, I don't care how egregious or whatever, if it's infidelity, if you mad at him, you mad at her, you mad at the other him, whatever it is, whatever the situation is, if you're mad about that, he didn't do this or he didn't, whatever it is that you're angry about, that anger is holding you hostage. And this is about breaking yourself free. So forgiveness is powerful. It is not a concession. It is not a justification of what he did. It's not saying that he was right or you were wrong. It's not saying that you were right and he was wrong. It's just saying it is giving you clarity. Clarity that helps you to understand what is within your control and what is out. And here's something that as powerful women, and we are all powerful in our own ways, the greatest power is letting go what is holding you back. Your greatest power is letting go what is holding you back. And when you hold on to anger, when you hold on to fear, when you hold on to resentment, when you hold on to he should have, he didn't, you are pouring all of this energy into somebody else's choices. And guess whose choices you have the ability to change? Yours. You clap. Yeah. You clap this. Clap, girl, clap, yes. You are giving someone else's choices power over your life. And forgiveness is about having clarity between the choices you can make and the choices that belong to somebody else. And you put those things into two piles and you get a finger to that pile that's theirs, okay? And you focus on what you can change. And that's your choices. And so forgiveness is freedom. Put that in the comments. Forgiveness is freedom. It is not exoneration. It is not an excuse. It is not a justification. It is the release that you deserve to get to your rebirth. Forgiveness is freedom. And, one of the most powerful things that I learned in my entire experience is that sometimes God will take from you what you will not let go. Okay? Sometimes God will take from you what you will not let go. And, we may be praying and praying and praying for some situation to heal, for some situation to change, when what we really need to do is let it go. And in letting it go, it doesn't mean you're giving up on the relationship, but what it simply means is you are deciding to focus on what you can change and the choices that you have power over, and the rest of that stuff you let it go. Because until you get to you, until you heal you, it doesn't matter whether it's him or anybody else. You're not going to bring the person that you deserve to be into the relationship. Okay? So remember that. Step 3, forgiveness is freedom. Free yourself through forgiveness. So now let's move on to step 3. Step 3. And the third step is this. You must master your fears. You must master your fears. And the thing is this, I remember literally the third day afterwards, and I really became afraid because I had been married for 21 years. 21 years. We had been together for 22 years. And so all I knew about love, about marriage, about being an adult, because we married when I was 22 and he was 23. We grew up together. Okay? So everything I had ever done as a true adult had been done together. I was in a startup business. We just moved to a new state. I was trying to finish up my dissertation. just, in this state of transition where I was not really at a point where I thought I could take care of myself, you know. And so I got really afraid. And because I was so afraid, I was like, well, I got to figure out how he's going to take me back because I can't make it on my own. And so, I go through this whole thing of, all right, so, what if I do this? What if I go through this whole negotiation? And it was a negotiation out of fear. Okay. And that is not a good place to be, because when fear is mastering you rather than you mastering your fears, you're going to make decisions that are not good. Now, maybe we did need to seek reconciliation, but we did not need to seek reconciliation because I was afraid I wasn't going to have health insurance. Or he didn't need to take me back because he was afraid I wouldn't make it on my own. We needed to reconcile based on what we needed from each other. Okay? So it's really important for you to face your fears and look for solutions, because fears are like a problem. And here's really what a fear is. Fear is the natural pause that allows you to make a risk assessment. That's how our bodies are made up. We are given the gift of fear. Okay, and that's not an anomaly. You didn't hear me wrong. We're given the gift of fear, because what fear does is it says, hey, stop for a minute. Now let's think about the pros. Let's think about the cons. Let's weigh the risks. Let's weigh the benefits, and then you move forward. Fear is that natural instinct that helps us to make healthy decisions about going forward. Now, fear becomes unhealthy when we allow fear to become a stop sign. And instead of moving forward, we just stop completely. We don't make the assessment. We make the decision based on the fear that is something that the risk is too big, and then we don't give ourselves the chance to grow. So, fear is natural, and it's dishonest to even suggest that when you go through a breakup, because it is fearful, and especially if you're in a situation where perhaps you were not the dominant financial partner, or you are a stay-at-home mom, or you're like I was in a startup business, or you're just afraid about, or it's just that you're just wondering how are you going to survive off of one income instead of two. I mean, these are very real things that we need to think about, even especially when you have children, because it's a very different situation. And the thing is that have the fear, but allow the fear to be that natural, healthy pause. Don't allow it to be the block that keeps you from moving forward, or put you in a place where you begin to make decisions because you are afraid, not decisions where you have done a healthy risk assessment of what's going on. And that's one great thing about being in business. I mean, we deal with business fears all the time. What if we don't have enough clients? What if we don't have enough sales? What if I don't get promoted? What if I get fired? I mean, we deal with all these things, or even the parts of our businesses that we handle. We handle risk assessments all the time in our businesses. But then when it comes to ourselves, we're unable to do that. And that's why, as a business coach, I have focused on this issue, because I want us to be empowered by the skills that we have that get us out of business, that help us to solve business problems all the time and solve them for ourselves. Because it's really no different. But the stakes are much higher, because this is our joy we're talking about. This is our life we're talking about. Your joy is worth the time that it takes to solve the problem. So fear is simply a problem that can be solved. And so it is important for you to acknowledge that you're afraid, acknowledge exactly what you're afraid of, and then begin to look at the fear that you have. What's the likelihood that it's going to materialize? And, weigh that on a scale of 1 to 5. And if it's a 1, then forget about it. If it's a 5 or whatever number, between 2 and 5, then figure out a solution. Who can help you? Because in it's like buying risk. It's like buying insurance for your life, right? Insurance mitigates a loss. So what's your life insurance? What is it that you're going to do to solve the problem that is causing you to be afraid? But the first thing is to acknowledge the fear. And the thing is, you are never powerless, even though you may not like the consequences, and the consequences may be something that are something that is going to be difficult for you. It's going to cause some hardship. It's going to cause a little discomfort. You may not like the consequences, but you always have a choice. And this is all about making the choice to move past your fear. So there's power when you weigh these options. There's power when you make the decision that you are bigger than any fear. You are bigger than any fear because you have the power to decide how you're going to solve the problem that your fear presents rather than to allow your fear to overtake you. You have that power. So remember this. Fear is the healthy pause that prepares you for what's next. Fear is the healthy pause that prepares you for what's next. So someone out there online, please put that in the comment. Hashtag fear is the healthy pause that prepares you for what's next. So let's move on to step 4. Step 4 is really very important because it's the place where a lot of us get stuck, and it's the place that jacks a lot of us up. And that is this. Step 4 is you must get your feelings out and then get out of your feelings. Okay? Get your feelings out and then get out of your feelings. Because, the thing is, you have to deal with your feelings. You cannot hold them in. Deal with your feelings. Do not hold them in. If you're mad, let it out. If you're sad, cry it out. If you are just in a rage, get it out. Now look, don't go to Carrie Underwood and Jasmine Sullivan route, Blue Can Trail where you're going to go and key up somebody's car, bust the windows out your car. Because here's the thing, Jasmine Sullivan was singing a song, but if you go bust the windows out somebody's car, key your ignition, you're going to jail. Okay, then we got a whole nother issue, right? So I'm making levity. I'm just adding a little levity here. But the point I want to make is this. Deal with your feelings in a way that is not going to create bigger problems for you. That's why I say get out of your feelings. Because a lot of us are making life decisions. We're making custody decisions. We're making business decisions. We're making financial decisions. And we're all up in our feelings. And we are hurting ourselves and we're hurting other people. And here's just one thing I'm just going to say. If you have children in a breakup and you're using those children to deal with your losses, that's not a good move. That's a punk move. I'm just gonna say it like that. And you cannot do that to yourself, and you should not do that to your children. I'm just gonna put that out there, and we're gonna move on about getting out of your feelings. But your children are not pawns in your love game. Okay? And you might want to put that as a hashtag. Your children are not pawns in your love game. This is about you dealing with your feelings, your issues. That's why I say you got to get your feelings out, but then you got to get out of your feelings. Because, feeling hurt is not a sign of weakness. It is something that's very natural. And I don't care how strong you are. I don't care how great of a businesswoman you are. When you deal with hurt, that hurts. It hurts. It hurts your ego. It hurts your confidence. It hurts for somebody to say, I don't want you. It hurts for somebody to cheat on you. It hurts for somebody to say, I'm not happy. I don't want to be with you anymore. It hurts. I don't care what it is. It hurts. And you have to deal with that. And you have to deal with that in a way that is going to heal you and not hurt you. Which is why, you got to get out of your feelings. And the thing is this, we make decisions based on feelings, emotions, and on logic. And if you can't go to the extreme of either, because you can't be cold-hearted and not be compassionate in making your decision, and you can't be all up in your feelings and you make an irrational decision. You got to find that balance. But you got to lean more towards the logic side than you do the emotion side. Why? Because now you got to take care of the business of getting back to you. You got to take care of the business of transitioning your life so that you will be well positioned long term. Because there are too many women who lay down across the tracks when it comes to negotiating the business of a breakup. And let me just back up for a moment and say this. This is not a cold-hearted statement. This is a business statement. This is a real-life statement. A breakup is a business deal. A breakup is a business deal. Why? You have to decide upon dividing of assets. You have to decide upon, if you have children, custody issues, child support, sometimes spousal support. It is a business deal. And you can't come to the business table making business decisions in your feelings, because you're either going to be on the vindictive side or you're going to be on the victim side. And neither side is good for you long term, and especially if you have children, it's not good for them. So when you come to that business table to negotiate the business deal of the breakup, you need to come prepared with logic. And you need to be in a state of mind where you can think through the long-term consequences of short-term decisions. So you have to be the advocate for yourself. And if you can't be an advocate for yourself, then either a lawyer or a trusted advisor needs to help you. Because, again, this is not being cold-hearted, and it's not, saying anything vindictive, but just the very real fact. A breakup is a business deal, and you need to handle your business. So that means if you're too emotional to make good decisions, don't make the decision because there are very few decisions that need to be made right then and there. So if you can't come to the business table and handle your business like a businesswoman, get up from the table. Don't come. Because you're going to make decisions that are going to hurt you and the other, your spouse, your ex-spouse, your ex-husband, your ex-significant other, your children. It's going to hurt all of you in the long term. So it's really important to be clear when you are dealing with the very issues of getting past, or handling the business of the breakup. And the thing is, you don't just get over it. And that's a very harsh thing to say. You don't just get over it. This is a process. I was very fortunate in that, again, I was able to move from breakup to breakthrough in about 30 days. Now, does that mean my heart was completely healed? No. Do I still deal with issues? Yes. But the thing is, I was able to make decisions that helped me to choose to get past being in that devastation and start working on my renaissance. I've been working on my renaissance since about 31 days after my ex-husband decided that he wanted a divorce. And it was a decision. It wasn't an easy one, but it was a choice. And so this whole process is just about making decisions that help you to get to your rebirth. Because remember, you cannot have a rebirth until you recognize what needs to die. And all of those hurt feelings, you need to deal with them. You need to face those fears. You need to face those feelings. And then you need to get it out. Because when you hold it in, because a lot of times, we think that, I'll just be stoic. I'm just going to hold it in. I'm going to put on my big girl pants. This ain't the time to put on no big girl pants. Get naked. Get naked. Let all of that out. Now, here's one thing I do want to say. Now, just like you don't really, really get naked in front of everybody and anybody, this is not the time to bare your soul to any and everybody. And it's really not the time to put it on social media. Now, you may say, Stephanie, you're on here talking about your divorce on social media. Yes, but I'm not bashing my ex-husband. I'm not giving y'all all the details. This is a process. This is the cathartic process. Well, I'm just talking about the experiences, not about the person, right? Because you will regret it. You will regret it if you go on social media or if you badmouth your ex. Because when you get past the hurt, because some, and you may say some of them, yeah, they deserve it or whatever. It may be the truth. Yeah, it may be the truth, but not all truth needs to be laid out. Some truth needs to, just like, I think I have a very decent body, right? But just because I have a decent body doesn't mean I get on camera naked. I'm going to get on camera with my clothes on, right? Same thing with your truth. Your truth deserves to be clothed in a way that respects your story. Your truth deserves to be clothed in a way that respects your story. Because the thing is, I don't care how much they hurt you. I don't care what they've done. If they cheated, whatever it is, they are a product of your choices. So when you go on and you talk about them, you are talking about the choices you made, which means you are not necessarily reflecting positively on you. So let me just really back in and say, get it out, but get it out in a way that respects your story. So talk to somebody, a therapist. do not underestimate the power and beauty of going to a therapist, because this is a process that requires you getting over it and getting through it. So talk to a therapist, talk to someone you trust, and be very careful about the friends you talk to, because not all friends have the capacity to handle your feelings, because some friends are emotionally invested in your marriage. So I know I couldn't talk to my family. I still don't talk to my family much about the divorce, because they loved my husband, ex-husband. They loved us. So they weren't really the people to talk to about the divorce, okay? So I had to find neutral people that I could trust and that I could talk to, who weren't emotionally invested in the marriage, in the divorce, and could hear me. And here's the thing, when you get it out, you're not going for advice as much as you're going to be heard. You need to be heard. And that's part of the healing, is to give voice to your story, to give voice to what it is you're feeling, because you don't have to apologize for those feelings. You don't have to explain them. You don't have to validate them. All you need to do is express them and acknowledge your feelings. Get them out. Then once you are empty, then you are free to fill yourself with emotions that are going to help you get to your breakthrough. So you will feel better. It's just like, I'm going to be gross for a moment, okay? I'm going to be gross for a moment. But it's just like when you need to poop, okay? When you holding all that stuff in, it's got your stomach tight, you just feeling all bad because you got all this toxic, this waste inside of you. And after you go to the bathroom, you let it go, you get up, you wipe out. Okay, like, I'm going to get too gross. You get up from there, don't you feel better? Yes, and that's the thing about you need to have let's see, how you have an emotional enema, okay? You need to have, I know that's kind of nasty, that sounds kind of, but you need to have an emotional enema. Get that out of you, okay? Get it out, because what it is, it stands for something. SHIT stands for self-held in toxicity. Self-held in toxicity. You holding all that stuff in. And you feeling all bloated, you feeling all nasty, you farting all over everybody, you feel uncomfortable, you need to let it go. Get it out. And then after that, you feel free, you feel that you are able then to make decisions that are based on logic and not based on your feelings. And plus you get it all out. So acknowledging your hurt is your pathway to healing. Acknowledging your hurt is your pathway to healing. So walk in it boldly. Walk in it at your pace. Your healing takes the time it takes. Now, I've shared, I went through a process, the initial process, in 30 days. Am I telling you you need to get over it in 30 days? No, I'm not. It takes the time it takes. But here's the thing. You got to decide that it's going to have a time, that there is an end. You got to decide that you are going to heal, and that you are going to embrace a healing, and that is at the end of the past. So again, step 4 is to get your feelings out, and then get out your feelings. So the last critical step in beginning the journey, because like I said, this is a journey that takes a while. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen without going through a process. But these are the 5 critical steps that it takes of getting back to the business of you after a breakup. The 5th step is find strength in your vulnerability. Find strength in your vulnerability. I remember the 5th day, literally the 5th day after he announced he wanted a divorce, I went to a business conference in Atlanta, Georgia. And I was feeling particularly low because I had to describe him as something that wasn't quite my husband. He was still my husband, but he wasn't my husband. We were not together. We were still, I was just in this whole just space of feeling lost. And so I called him and then broke down on the phone, talking about, how much I loved him and how I lost him. I mean, just a pitiful cry, all right? I just let it all out. I was like, I don't have anything else to lose. I done lost a man. I'm going to go and tell him how I feel, right? So I go through all this. He doesn't say anything. And then I sent a text. I'm just, I don't even remember what I was texting, but I just got it all out. How I felt. I truly felt lost at that point without him. I truly did, still love him at that point and all this. But I just let it all out. It's like I have nothing to lose. I said, either he will say, oh my gosh, I feel the same way too, I'll take you back. Or he'll do like he did and say nothing. Okay, so he said nothing, but I got it out. But here's what that did. You know, I told him how I really felt. And I didn't lose anything by it. I didn't get what I had hoped to gain, but I didn't lose anything. That moment of vulnerability, even though I felt pitiful and felt, crying and all that, carrying on the phone, messing up my makeup, all this kind of business, even though I felt, weakened at that moment, getting all of that out and just saying my truth, sharing my truth, made me feel stronger. Because I'm like, well, I'll never be able to say I never told him how I felt. And he'll never be able to say I didn't know how you felt. I told him. And so, the thing is, vulnerability is often mistaken for weakness, but it is the strongest thing that you can do. There's nothing stronger than to stand emotionally naked in front of a person and tell them your truth. Okay? And you're not doing it for the purpose of other than honoring your truth. Your truth is your truth. And we need to give voice to our truth. And again, just like forgiveness is not necessarily for them, being vulnerable is not necessarily for them. It's for you. Because when you can find the strength to say how you feel, if you feel lost, say it. If you feel angry, say it. If you feel sad, say it. However it is that you feel. If you feel remorseful, say that. If you feel that you could have done more, say that. And whatever it is, whatever your truth is, say it. If you feel I'm angry, I feel you should have, and do it in a way of not for the point of pointing fingers, but really sharing your truth. Because there is a strength in being able to do that. And the thing is, one of two things are going to happen. One, you don't have anything else to lose at this point. You truly don't. Because either things will stay the same, the relationship is ended, or it may open the door for resolution. Resolution doesn't necessarily always mean reconciliation, but you need resolution. Because many people who go through a relationship, or some people who go through the end of a relationship, have the fortune of giving each other closure. Closure is so very important. But it doesn't necessarily always take two people to get closure. It's about you getting it out. So when you share your truth, it gives you the closure. Now, whether they have closure, that's on them. Because remember, you divided those things into things you have control over and the things you don't. But we're focusing on what you have control over. You have control over your truth. Your truth will set you free. You get it. The truth will set you free. Your truth will set you free. Because when you hold your truth hostage, again, you're holding yourself back from being able to get the breakup that you breakthrough that you deserve. You stay in the breakup rather than getting to the breakthrough. So, being vulnerable is not being pitiful. It's not being weak. It is being strong enough to speak your truth. Being vulnerable is being strong enough to speak your truth. And what it ultimately does is it turns your sad story into a testimony. Because what I hope, you will appreciate from this, I'm being very transparent with you. I'm putting not all my business out there, but I am being transparent with you. I'm sharing a moment of vulnerability with you. And so what it has done for me is it has transformed what could have been a very sad story in my life to a testimony that not only helps me, but will perhaps help someone else. So being vulnerable is being strong enough, again, to share your truth. So we've gotten to the end of the 5 steps, that's 10, 5 steps that are critical to beginning your journey of breakup to breakthrough, those 5 critical steps that help you to get back to the business of you after a breakup. And for those of you who just joined, it's important to remember what those 5 steps are. And also for those of you who've been here the whole time, so that you know what those steps are to beginning this journey. The first thing is to focus on your future. Because if you focus on the devastation, that's all you'll see and that's where you'll be. So you've got to focus on the future. So we want to move past the devastation to the celebration of the rebirth, the renewal, and the renaissance. Step 2 was to free yourself through forgiveness. Free yourself through forgiveness. Because when you forgive the other person, it literally lightens your load. Carrying the hurt, the anger, the resentment, it is like walking around with a boulder on your back. You need to get that boulder off your back. Get that monkey off your back, okay? So free yourself through forgiveness. And remember, forgiveness is not a concession. It's not a justification. It's not an exoneration. It is a release that removes the power of their choices over you. Step 3 was to face your fears and find the solution. Master your fears. Master your fears. Because remember, your fears are simply a healthy pause that help you to prepare for what's next. Step 4 was to get your feelings out and then get out of your feelings. Get your feelings out and then get out of your feelings. Because remember, a breakup is a business deal. And so you need to come to the table and negotiate with logic and not with emotion. But most importantly, you need to get that out of you. Remember, self-help and toxicity. You need to get those feelings out so that you can feel light and be a vessel now for the new emotions that will be associated with your rebirth and your renewal. And then step 5 is to find strength in your vulnerability. So remember, vulnerability is the strength of sharing your truth. And it is truly that opportunity to turn your sad story into a testimony. Well, I thank you, those of you who are in the room, as well as those of you who are out there online, for joining me in Breakup to Breakthrough, 5 critical steps of getting back to the business of you after a breakup. And this is a very powerful conversation to begin, but as I mentioned, these are just the first 5 steps. This is an entire process. And if you would like to have a strategy session to help you get from your breakup to breakthrough, I encourage you to go to bit.ly/breakup to breakthrough. Again, that's bit.ly/breakup to breakthrough. And you can schedule a strategy session with me, and we can talk about the transformation that you will undergo in getting from your breakup to your breakthrough. So again, I'm Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, CEO of C-Suite Women's Network, where I help women to be the CEOs of their lives so they can be better CEOs in their business. And anytime we're dealing with business deals, sometimes business does not go as planned, and that can include the business of breakups. And so as a business coach, I help women to get the results that they desire in their business, which is why I want to help you to get back to the business of you've experienced a breakup. So again, you can go to bit.ly/breakup to breakthrough and schedule a strategy session, and we can talk about how you will get, or I can help you to get to the blueprint that's going to help you to get to the transformation that you desire, that you deserve, so that you can get back to the business of you and truly get to the renaissance that you desire and you deserve. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me. And I just want to just remind you that loss can be beautiful. And loss can be beautiful because you always have the opportunity to create a beautiful renaissance from the devastation. And the choice is up to you, and it is truly the power of your choices that determines the outcome of your life. So the product of your life is defined by the power of your choices. And so it's all up to you. It is that simple, yet much more complex. But it begins with your choice, your decision, that you are going to get past the breakup to get to your breakthrough. So with that, I'll just say thank you. I'm going to find a graceful way to get off of this table so that I can come and turn off the recording. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining me again. I'm Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, CEO of C-Suite Women's Network. And I encourage you to go to bit.ly/breakup to break through to schedule your strategy session. And of course, if you want to connect with me, you can text me at 228-238-7997. Again, that's 228-238-7997, and let me know I'm ready for my breakthrough. And for those of you where this has resonated with you and you're ready for your breakthrough, just put that in the comment. #I am ready for my breakthrough. So thanks a lot. I appreciate you, and your breakthrough is coming.